On today's episode of the Locked On NHL podcast, 3 teams stuck in the mud. Who got out of the car to push? Who got out of the car and walked? And who's still trying to drive forward?
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Locked On NHL podcast, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. We are your team each and every day, and we are your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you tune in. We appreciate having you along. And make sure to subscribe on YouTube as well so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On today's episode of Locked On NHL, we take a look at key questions ahead of the season for the Philadelphia Flyers, the Boston Bruins, and the Seattle Kraken. And as you heard in the cold open, it mostly has to do with which teams are kind of trying to take a step back, which teams are still trying to push, and which teams just don't really know where they're at right now. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wilds, joined by JD Young of Locked On Sharks. And JD, as we continue what has been kind of an annual tradition for us on the Tuesday edition of Locked On NHL, we're going through the whole gauntlet before the start of the regular season. And let's start with a team that had some interesting changes in the offseason, but one obviously behind the bench as well.
Yes.
The Philadelphia Flyers. In comes Rick Tocchet. In comes Trevor Zegras. And in comes, a couple of other pieces just to try to shake up the look of this Flyers team that it feels like John Tortorella really got about as much as he could out of this team. And so you see a few moves. Obviously, the big one at the before the deadline was Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost being jettisoned. You bring in Andrei Kuzmenko and a couple of draft picks as well. Trevor Zegras, the big offseason move for this Flyers team. And so I guess my big question about the Flyers is, like, new coach. Are they still pushing this year, or is this a Flyers team that is trying to get a little better traction before they do really go full bore in the Eastern Conference?
That, because you see them, right? You mentioned Zegras, and Zegras, I feel like, is a big wild card for this team, because if you can go back to recapturing what we were really excited about Trevor Zegras a couple of seasons ago, you could see this team, especially with Michkov in year 2, you could see this team really maybe start to score some goals. They added Christian Dvorak to help kind of the middle 6 or the bottom 6 here as well. They re-signed Cam York, who always you always feel like Cam York is 1 year away, and maybe this is the 1 year away with Cam York, that where it actually becomes a year. But I look at the goaltending, and I know this team had their goaltending kind of not blown up with what happened, but Dan Vladar and Ivan Fedotov and Samuel Ersson in the mix doesn't really give you a ton of confidence, right? And as a team that or a fan of a team that has actively tanked, the quickest way to tanking is having substandard goaltending, and I feel like the Flyers didn't really solve their goaltending issues this offseason. And yes, new regime, and maybe they start to see some more success, but I still feel like this is a team that's going to probably be competing for one of the top picks in the draft because of the goaltending situation.
Yeah, and I think what you always see, most of the time is Rick Tocchet's going to come in and he's going to quickly try to identify, hey, these are the guys that can kind of work in my system.
Yep.
These are the ones that cannot. And it's interesting. You bring up the goaltending, and I look at this D core. I mean, you've got Ryan Ellis on injured reserve, Travis Sanheim, Cam York, Rasmus Ristolainen, Nick Seeler, Jamie Drysdale, and Igor Zamula as your top six at this point, at least by salaries. Noah Juleson obviously in the mix as well, but it feels like they could maybe try to dislodge one of those contracts of the older variety on me, but I don't know. It feels like Danny Briere still has a lot of tinkering to do, and it feels like a team that was kept afloat largely by the efforts of Matvei Michkov, and I think we saw a good example too of like this roster needs a few other pieces and potentially Trevor Zegras to not necessarily be the number one guy, because I think we saw Michkov can be that, but you definitely need a number two. You definitely need a number three. And guys like Travis Konechny, like Sean Couturier at the top of their roster, Owen Tippett, like these are complementary pieces. They're not like inner ring and outer ring players. They're complementary pieces, but you definitely still need some of that second tier to really fill out the scoring on this team.
Yeah, and like the weird thing is, like, for a team that is, again, picking, this was the fourth worst team in the NHL last year. Actually, all three of these teams ended up with 76 points, but the Flyers were the fourth worst team in the NHL last year when it came, in the standings. But they're also like 370,000. Like they do not have a lot of cap space, which is not a good place to be in there. And a lot of their guys, that you just mentioned, full no move clauses that you really can't do anything with unless that player decides, I don't want to be here anymore. So yeah, it's you do like. You wonder if the Flyers, they're just going to have to try to push because they don't really have a choice to try to maybe sit back and tank it for another season. But the goaltending, like I said, might be the big equalizer for them, where they could be one of those teams that puts up a bunch of points, but then also gives up a ton of goals as well. And they just kind of like, well, we lose every game, 4-3 or 5-4 type of thing because our goaltending is subpar. And that just naturally puts us in a place to be in contention for, McKenna or Verhoff or whomever at the top of the draft this year.
It wouldn't surprise me if this Flyers team goes for it early, but maybe runs out of magic, and then all of a sudden you see them at the trade deadline trying to do a little bit of a calculated sell-off. Now they don't have a ton, unless you find some team that is, I'll take on, I'll take on a large portion of one of these big contracts, but Christian Dvorak could be a serviceable like bottom six player for somebody. Depending on what happens with Zegras, that's intriguing. Nick Delorier could be a fourth line guy for somebody.
They don't have like a lot of like easy, Jamie Drysdale, like you don't want to trade him, because they don't have a lot of tradable contracts is the problem. Like they don't have contracts that you can easily trade and kind of get off. So yeah, I think they're in a position where they just might be stuck with this team right now because they're kind of, the contracts just tell them otherwise. And like the guys who would be intriguing trade pieces, like they just cost too much. And yeah, I know they probably, they're still okay with like the retention slots and everything, but like it just makes your life harder for this team that again, I maybe they take a step forward this year, but I think we probably see very similar to what we saw last year from them. And maybe Michkov, I think we'll see Michkov score a bajillion goals this year because he's not going to get benched for, not back checking or whatever from. But again, I think I just think this team's going to score a lot, but I think they're going to give up a ton of goals as well. So,
yeah. And coming from a team that I cover that has been working to try to clean up their books a little bit, having a clean balance sheet just is,
it's great.
Yeah. The Flyers, however, do not have one.
Nope.
So That's just something to strive for. It's something to work towards. And like we said, don't be surprised if this team kind of is in the fight early and maybe kind of fizzles out of it like they did last year. Until Danny Briere can kind of dislodge some of those big foundational pieces that may not be part of the next core. This is gonna be kind of how they look, but I'd say they're a little further ahead of their process than our next team, who is just kind of starting to really sift through the mud here. The Boston Bruins, are they trying to go forward? Are they clearly targeting Gavin McKenna? We'll try to figure out the direction that the Bruins are headed as we continue today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Well, that's easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. My favorite part about surfing through Indeed as a job seeker is seeing those sponsored posts at the top of the page. They are usually the first that you go to, and Indeed also goes the extra mile to try to connect you and your skills with job seekers and the positions that they're looking to fill. And now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. We are your team each and every day as well, so make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite audio platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. It's Boston Bruins time, JD, and this is a Bruins team that they're in it right now. Like they, gone is the Brad Marchand era. They're at this point kind of stuck in limbo, stuck in the middle, and you look at this roster and it very clearly reflects that kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out approach.
Yeah, I mean, even the moves they made this offseason, right? A lot of kind of like third line type of guys that just kind of help fill out the roster right now as I think they try to kind of figure out, they traded for Victor Arvidsson from the Oilers, and like some of the guys that they signed, like Mikey Eyssimont, which is like a perfectly like cromulent fourth line type of player. They just didn't, they're just kind of going through the motions right now, trying to figure out what this team is. Tanner Jeannot, again, another bottom six type of guy. Sean Curley, again, another bottom six type of guy. And they're just trying to fill up the roster here. And yes, I know it wasn't the sexiest of free agent classes, especially after like everybody signed the day before free agency started, re-signed the day before free. But it's basically feels like, how far can Pastrnak, McAvoy, and Swayman carry this team? And I think if any of three of those guys misses any extended amount of time, this could be one of the worst teams in the NHL.
Yeah, and you look at the books, you look at the players on the roster. So obviously Morgan Geekie got a large amount of playing time with the Bruins because of how the rest of the roster played out. And to his credit, he parlayed that into a career season. And then Boston goes and they sign him for 5 years at $5.5 million per. Now, could he keep that production level? He sure could. And at which case, if he does that, if he becomes a perennial 30 goal scorer, $5.5 million is a major bargain. But ask the Colorado Avalanche how that went with Casey Middlestat and acquiring him to be a second line center. And, going out then and getting Charlie Coyle at the deadline and saying, oh, wait, no, Coyle's way better at this. And then moving Casey Middlestat. I know they probably would have preferred to keep him, but there's a lot of risk on this roster, and there's a lot of long-term gambles that if they pan out, great. But if not, then you got to try to clear that off your books.
Yeah, they have a lot of guys signed for a very long time. And I will say, I will commend the team of being patient. Like James Higgins, who was, they picked in the first round this year, and a lot of people thought was going to be a, top 5 pick that they got. I think it was at 7 or whatever. Send him back to school, let him marinate, because it would have been very easy to be like, hey, look at this new shiny thing. Like, James Higgins, you need to come help save the franchise and turn this thing around. And I will give them credit for a team that has struggled to develop players. Granted, they've not had a lot of first round picks, or they've traded them, or they've been picking the back end of the first round for a very long time here. But I will say, being patient with James Higgins here is probably the long-term play for them. But I just look at this roster, man, and it is Fabian Lysell has been their number one prospect for, it feels like 5 years now. Is he going to finally be able to crack the lineup? It feels like a team that just desperately needs some new blood, but they don't have anybody to kind of transfuse blood in right now. And I know they got some pieces from, Murat Kutsadinov, who you could probably talk a little bit more about, but I really liked him in the draft process, several years ago. But it feels like a team that is definitely kind of going through the motions this year to try to figure out what the direction is. And if this year, maybe they kind of punch above their weight, maybe they try to okay, let's see what we can do next offseason. But if this, like I said, if Pasta gets hurt, or especially if Swayman gets hurt, it feels like this could be one of the worst teams in the NHL. It's not that, I don't think it's that inconceivable for this team to be one of the worst teams.
Yeah. Any level of non-production from the top end guys is going to result in major problems. I mean, you look at the season that Pastrnak had last year, and this Bruins team had the 4th fewest goals in the league. The league with him going nuts like he did. So, and that includes Morgan Geekie having a career season. You look at it, and 222 goals on the season, 76 of those came from 2 players.
Ugh.
You had one other
had before. I was Marchand before he got he probably scored a bunch of goals too before he got you could probably say almost half the goals I bet came from those 3 players.
Yeah. In fact, 21 goals from Marchand in the 61 games he played with the Bruins. Yeah. So that is 97 goals from 3 guys, which I'm no math expert, but that leaves you 125 goals for the rest of the team.
That's I am curious to see without Marchand, who's been there forever, right? You've seen the exodus of talent from Boston with just guys aging out, et cetera, et cetera. It happens to every great team. Guys just kind of age out. How this team tries to kind of figure out its new identity. And, does Pastrnak wear the C? Do they give it to McAvoy? Do they just maybe let it rest for a little bit and try to figure it out? But this does feel like a team that we I don't have a lot of high hopes. Again, maybe this team is an 80-point team at best. But I think this is a team that's going to be comfortably in the top 5 of the draft this year.
This feels like a team that if they get over 70 points, it's going to feel painful getting there, because they're going to have to scratch for every single point that they get. If they're below 70, you're going to look up and say, well, yeah, what did you expect? But if they go between 70 and 80, 82, 84.
That is a grind. You grind it out every possible. Yes. It's a lot of 2-1 and Swayman just standing on his head as they get outshot by 20 shots every night type of thing. That's definitely how I feel about this team.
It's 2 a.m. Taco Bell. It's a gamble. you don't really care. And
Nope.
when you have to start dealing with the consequences, it is a pillage. It's a pillage of pain.
But at that 2 a.m. part, though, it is
Yeah.
it'll get the job done. It
In
gets the job done.
in the 10 minutes you enjoyed eating it, you're like, oh yeah, this was well worth it. But
Well
the
worth
rest
it,
of the
easily.
process is a mess. Speaking of a mess, at least in kind of where they go from here, the Seattle Kraken made some big moves in the offseason as well. They also brought in a new head coach, a couple of new pieces. Will it be enough? We'll tell you if the Freddie Gaudreau factor can sway things for the Kraken as we finish today's episode of Locked On NHL after this.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even where they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. Nobody wants to leave money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can spend all your accounts, or you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are for nerds. Monarch also makes it super easy to work with your partner. Maybe you guys have separate accounts, or maybe you're working towards combined goals, whether it's buying a house, buying a car, or just planning for your next adventure. It's easy to set budgets, goals, and spending activity in one place. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL.
Final segment of today's episode of the Locked On NHL podcast. Once again, we are your team each and every day, and we are your first listen each and every day as well. We appreciate you tuning in here on your Tuesday. Final team that we're going to discuss on today's episode is the Seattle Kraken. The Dan Bilesma tenure lasted less than a year. Ron Francis now has been elevated to president and, more importantly, out of the GM role. That's the nice benefit you get for being elevated to president is congratulations. Here's a title upgrade, but we're taking your keys away, basically.
Yeah. Your key only opens this one door now.
Yeah.
Someone will bring you lunch at 12. So
also into the lineup, Freddie Gaudreau from the Minnesota Wild. Andre Burakovsky is headed to Chicago. Mason Marchment in from the Dallas Stars. So some movement both to and fro. But as I look at this Kraken roster, JD, like you've got Jaden Schwartz.
Just say the J Fresh tweet. We're all waiting for it.
This is the perfect construction of players if you're looking to get exactly 80 points.
It is. They're going to play hard every night. They're going to grind. This is the most third line team that ever existed, right? They're going to grind.
Yeah.
They're going to try to win every game 3-2. And yeah, they're going to get you exactly 80 points this year. This team, if you want to be positive, like if you want to kind of like squint and be like, okay, there's something here. I think Matty Beniers and Capo Caco, like those two guys together is you're like, okay, like Capo Caco came in after getting traded from the Rangers last year and really played well. Imagine that, Seth, if you have a top player, a guy who was picked very high in the draft, and you give him top minutes, he produces.
What a concept.
You saw Beniers and Kako like really play well, and I want to see how those two guys play in a full season together. And I think that's what you're kind of looking at. And it sounds like it's Joey DeCord's job now, and Philip Grubauer is going to play 30 games or whatever it is, and they're going to be terrible in those 30 games. But there's just not a lot like some of the I really like the Marchment trade. I thought that was a great trade for them. I really like Marchment. You know exactly what he's going to be. He's probably going to score 15 to 20 goals, but It's a third line grinder team. That's what this entire team.
Yeah.
There's nothing special to hang your hat with on this team, unfortunately.
You know those TikToks where the guy says, "Now that thing is bleeping Italian." The rendition here is, "Now that team is a third line." Like
so the whole line's a third. The whole team's a third line.
Now that thing is a third line.
Yeah.
It just, the biggest issue that I have, and maybe this is because I've done a little bit of comparing him to Marco Rossi. I look at Matty Beniers as 20 goals, 43 points in the season. That's not enough.
No.
Like, if he's going to be the centerpiece of your franchise, you got to be like at minimum.
But again, who's been around him? He's surrounded by third line dudes. And Shane Wright, was a fourth pick in the draft a couple years ago, and like I know they were very slow with him, but like I think you gotta take the training wheels off now. Like you gotta let Shane Wright figure out what you got with him. It's just this team, there's just nothing special about like what special players are on this team. What players do you feel like can be difference makers or like would be impactful players on a playoff caliber team? Like,
I mean, I would say if you were going to pluck from this roster and put on a playoff team, I mean,
like just like not like a Colorado, like a team like like one, but like like a team like I don't know who like where pick like a random like third
St. Louis Blues,
like the Wild, say the Wild, like perfect team like the Wild, right?
Okay,
who was on this team? You're like, okay, that guy would make a lot of like easily play like at least top 6 minutes for us or top pairing, top 4 on the blue line. It's like
I would say Beniers and one of Jared McCann or Jaden Schwartz just as like a wing guy.
Yeah.
Would fill in. But beyond that, like defensively, I don't think any defenseman that they have is supplanting anybody that the Wild has. And that's the thing is like all these playoff teams,
blue line's pretty,
it's pretty stacked.
But still,
all these teams that make the playoffs, like I feel like they have the edge on D. Like you got a bunch of defensemen that can eat minutes, but I don't know. There just is. It's a collection of players. It's like not the Avengers, but just the collection of people. Like Nick Fury is going around and he's putting a team together with a particular set of skills, and they're like, "Oh, so what kind of thing are you grabbing?" He's like, "I don't really know.
I need a bunch of guys who could just blend in with their environment. Nothing special.
I need a large group of people to fill up a restaurant as background actors for a movie that I'm putting together. It's like, oh, we got 23 of them right here for you.
Yeah,
that might be a little harsh. Shout out to Erica if she's listening. That might be a little harsh, but
it's the team that like it just feels. I think I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. Them making the playoffs their second year, like, really kind of screwed up the trajectory. Yeah. As bad as that sounds, because then they were like, "I guess we're good," and pushed everything in, and you just don't really have anything to kind of show for this team right now. So, I mean, they'll be competitive night in, night out, but it's hard for me. Like they have such a high floor and such a low ceiling where it's like, they're going to be competitive night in and night out, but like you're not going to get anything special from them. And maybe they compete for a wild card spot, but like you're going to go in and have to play, most likely Vegas the first round and get crushed. It's not pretty.
Well, and to your point about the wild card, like just looking in the Western Conference, the teams that'll potentially be on the bubble for said wild card, like, is Utah better than Seattle? I would say yes.
Yep.
Vancouver, that's maybe a toss up.
But they have more special players.
Accurate.
Like you could be like Quinn Hughes is a game breaking type of player, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Calgary, they are,
About the
I
same.
still give them the
Yeah.
edge. St. Louis, I give the edge. Minnesota, I give the
I mean,
edge.
Cam Fowler is the difference maker in St.
Yeah.
Louis. So
It's
yeah,
not a comparison to the Blues. Like, they're
no.
far and away the better of the teams, but all those teams that you'd potentially be going toe to toe against,
And
that-
even looking like Anaheim, which we expect to make a jump, like you could point to players that you think in Anaheim are going to be special players or on their way to being special players, like a guy like Leo Carlson and some of these other guys that they've drafted and they've been developing. Kraken hockey. It's happening. It's a thing that happens.
Yeah, this is like when you find out that you're going to your favorite restaurant, or then you get told you're going to your favorite restaurant, but you end up going somewhere else that has food, and you're like,
yes. It's It's not even the 2 a.m. Taco Bell. It's like
great.
Insert your favorite chain, your favorite kind of mediocre chain restaurant. Like, oh, we're not going there. We're going to,
It's warm food in that it's been taken out of the refrigerator and left on the counter. And you're like, okay, man, I did not anticipate going that far in on the
I think we're really
again.
hungry.
I'm starving. But that's what we have for you for today's
really
episode.
Quick, we should start to out of these three. Give me a ranking. Who finishes high 1, 2, and 3 out of these 3 teams? So like, who has the highest? I think we're good. I think it's gonna be Kraken. I think Kraken, Flyers, Bruins. I have a horrible feeling about the Bruins in that order. So
can I pick the Meteor?
Can I take the 2 a.m. Taco Bell?
It has to be Kraken, Flyers, Bruins.
Yeah.
I feel like the Bruins have the lowest ceiling, highest floor. I like how you put that.
Or lowest floor too. I think lowest floor,
lowest
ceiling.
Words.
I don't know. Let's get some food.
English
Even
language.
though we're thousands of miles away. Let's get some food.
It's time for crumble. Thanks for tuning into today's episode. Appreciate having you along for the Tuesday edition of Locked On NHL. A reminder, you can listen to Locked On NHL every day, every Monday through Friday, with our array of panelists covering all of the pressing NHL topics. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week, because we have them for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.